In 2024, Warren Buffett says he can make 50% on $1 million. To do it, he advised us to read the Moody's manual or its equivalent, find small investments, and love doing it. The caveat is that this is applicable to small amounts like $1 million.
Good afternoon, Mr. Buffett, Mr. Abel. My name is Sirapop Wu, a resident of New Zealand, but originally from Thailand. This is my first time in America and the first time attending the meeting. The journey was quite rough, but it was all worth it though, because I can now personally thank you, Mr. Buffett, and the late Charlie Munger, well, he's still with us, for organizing such a wonderful event, and most importantly, for being such an exceptional role models and sharing your wisdom with us all these years. So, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So here's my question for you, Mr. Buffett. Towards the end of 2018, you mentioned that you guarantee you could make a 50% annual return if you had to start again with under $1 million. The question is, if tomorrow you woke up in the body of
your body.
20-year-old American.
Your body. But that's fine.
And your name was now Warren a la carte. And you had some money to invest on a full-time basis. What method or methods would you use to achieve that return? Would it involve flipping through 20,000 pages of Moody's manual or similar publications,
yep,
or finding, to find cigarettes? Or would it be hunting for great companies at a fair price, as Mr. Munger would? Or would it be a combination of both, with opportunity cost serving as the final arbiter of which method to use, given that your investing opportunity has now broadened significantly? Thank you. Khop kun kap.
Good question. I'm glad you came. The answer would be, in my particular case, it would be going through the 20,000 pages. And since we were talking about railroads, I went through the Moody's Transportation Manual a couple of times. That was 1,500 or 2,000 pages, or probably 1,500 pages. And I found all kinds of interesting things when I was 50 or when I was 20 or 21. And I don't imagine there's anybody here that knows about the Green Bay and Western Railroad Company, but there were hundreds and hundreds of railroad companies, and I like to read about every one of them. The Green Bay and Western, in those days, everybody had a nickname for railroads. I mean, that was just what Northern Pacific was, the Nipper, and the Phoebe Snow was one of them in the east that used to go up to Cornell. And the Green Bay and Western was known as grab baggage and walk, and GB&W. And they had a bond that was actually the common stock, and they had a common stock that was actually a bond. And, that could lead to unusual things. But they wouldn't lead to unusual things that would work for you with many millions of dollars. But if you collected a whole bunch of those, which I set out to do, and actually that's what impressed Charlie when I first met him, because I knew all the details of all these little companies on the West Coast that he thought I would never have heard of. But I knew about the Los Angeles Athletic Club or whatever it might be, and he thought he was the only one that knew about that, and that became an instant point of connection. So, to answer your question, I don't know what the equivalent of Moody's manuals or anything would be now, but I would try and know everything about everything small, and I would find something. And with $1 million, you could earn 50% a year. But you have to be in love with the subject. You can't just be in love with the money. You really got to just find it like essentially like, people find other things in other fields because they just love looking for it. A biologist looks for something because they want to find something. And that's built into. I don't know how the human brain works that much, and I don't think anybody understands too well how the human brain works. But there's different people that just find it exciting to expand their knowledge in a given area. know great bridge players. I know great chess players, actually. Kasparov came to Omaha and met Mrs. B. I've had the luck of meeting a lot of people that are unbelievably smart in their own arena and do some unbelievably dumb things in other areas. So all I know is the human brain is complicated, but it does its best when you find out what your brain is really suited for, and then you just pound the hell out of it from that point. And that's what I would be doing if I had a small amount of money and I wanted to make 50% a year. But I also wanted to just play the game. And you can't do it if you don't find the game of interest, whether it's bridge or whether, whatever it may be, chess, or in this case, finding securities that are undervalued. But it sounds to me like you're on the right track. I mean, anybody that'll come all the way to this annual meeting has got something in their mind other than bridge or chess. So I'm glad you came, and come again next year.
In 2019, Warren Buffett also advised to use arbitrage and find fringe opportunities to achieve a 50% return on $1 million.
My name is John Durso, and I'm from New York. Mr. Buffett, you've said that you could return 50% per annum if you were managing a $1 million portfolio. What type of strategy would you use? Would you invest in cigar butts, i.e. average businesses at very cheap prices, or would it be some type of arbitrage strategy? Thank you.
It might well be the arbitrage strategy, but in a very different, perhaps, way than customary arbitrage is thought of. But one way or another, I can assure you, if Charlie was working with $1 million or I was working with $1 million, we would find a way to make that with essentially no risks, not using a lot of leverage or anything of the sort. But you change the 1 million to 100 million, and that 50 goes down like a rock. There are little fringe inefficiencies that people don't spot. And you do get opportunities occasionally to do, but they don't really have any applicability to Berkshire. So, Charlie?
Well, I agree totally. It's just what you used to say that large amounts of money, they develop their own anchors.
Yeah.
It gets harder and harder. I've just seen genius after genius with a great record, and pretty soon they got 30 billion and 2 floors of young men. And away goes the good record. It's just the way it works. But Charlie, it's hard as the money goes up.
When Charlie was a lawyer, initially, I mean, you were developing a couple of real estate projects. You find, if you really want to make $1 million or 50% on $1 million, and you're willing to work at it, and you'll find that's doable, but it just has no applicability to managing huge sums. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
Yeah, Lee Lu, using nothing but the float on his student loans, had $1 million practically shortly after he graduated as a total scholarship student. He found just a few things to do, yeah, and did them.
In 1999, Warren Buffett says he knows a dozen people who can achieve 50% on $1 million. He advised us to find small securities, wrinkles, in our area of competence, and have fun with the treasure hunt.
My name is Howard Love. I'm from San Francisco. Thank you very much for this weekend in general and this meeting in particular. Recently at a talk at the Wharton Business School, Mr. Buffett, you indicated that you were talking about the problems of compounding large size, which I appreciate and understand. But you indicated, you're quoted in the local paper as saying that you are confident that if you were working with a sum closer to $1 million, that you could compound that at a 50% rate. For those of us who aren't saddled with the $100 billion problem, could you talk about what types of investments you'd be looking at and where in today's market you think significant inefficiencies exist? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I may have been very slightly misquoted, but I certainly said something to the effect. But working, I think I talked about this group I get together every 2 years and how I poll that group as to what they think they could compound money at it with 100,000, a million, 100 million, a billion, and other types of sums. And I pointed out how this group of 60 or so people that I get together with every couple of years, how their expectations of return would go very rapidly down this slope. It is true. I think I can name a half a dozen people that I think could compound $1 million, or at least they could earn 50% a year on $1 million, have that as an expectation, if they needed it. I mean, they'd have to get their full attention to be working on the sum. And those people could not compound money, 100 million or $1 billion, at anything remotely like that rate. I mean, there are little tiny areas which, if you follow what I said on the screen there on that Adam Smith's interview a few years ago, if you start with A and you go through and you look at everything and you find small securities in your area of competence that you can understand the business, I think you could, and occasionally find little arbitrage situations or little wrinkles here and there in the market. I think working with a very small sum, that there is an opportunity to earn very high returns, but that advantage disappears very rapidly as the money compounds. Because from $1 million to 10 million, I would say it would fall off dramatically in terms of because there are little, you find very, very small things that you can make, and you're almost certain to make high returns on, but you don't find very big things in that category today. I'll leave to you the fun of finding them yourselves. I mean, it'd be terrible to spoil the treasure hunt. And the truth is, I don't look for them anymore. Every now and then I'll stumble into something just by accident, but I'm not in the business of looking for that. I'm looking for things that Berkshire could put its money in, and that rules out all of that sort of thing. Charlie?
Well, I would agree, but I would also say that what we did 40 or so years ago was in some respects more simple than what you're going to have to do.
Right.
We had it very easy compared to you. It can still be done, but it's harder now. You have to know more. I mean, just sifting through the manuals until you find something that's selling at 2 times earnings, that won't work for you.
It'll work, it's just you won't find any.
Yeah.